Danish officials requested the meeting with the administration. Greenland's prime minister says Greenland stands with Denmark and warns that the territory will face a geopolitical crisis if it has to choose between the U.S. and Denmark. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, the White House.
In a standoff over federal immigration enforcement in Minnesota, at least half a dozen veteran assistant U.S. attorneys have resigned. Matt Sepik of Minnesota Public Radio reports Justice Department officials had pressured the lawyers to investigate the widow of a woman killed last week by an ICE agent.
Those who quit include Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office Criminal Division Chief Melinda Williams and Joe Thompson, the lead fraud prosecutor. According to a person familiar with the situation not authorized to speak publicly, the prosecutors quit over pressure to investigate Becca Good for ties to activist groups, which is protected First Amendment activity. She's the widow of Renee Macklin Good, who was killed by ICE agent Jonathan Ross last week in Minneapolis. The assistant U.S. attorneys also object to the Justice Department's reluctance to investigate Ross. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says there's, quote, currently no basis for a criminal civil rights investigation. For NPR News, I'm Matt Sepik in Minneapolis.
The Oglala Sioux tribe in South Dakota is demanding information about tribal members still in ICE custody since they were detained last week in Minneapolis. The tribe's president, Frank Starr, comes out, said in a statement 4 men were picked up at a homeless encampment. He says 1 has been released, 3 remain illegally detained. He says federal officials told the tribe that information about the detained men would be released only if the tribe entered into an agreement with ICE, which the tribe says is not going to happen. 2025 was a lackluster year for home sales, but sales activity picked up in December. Here's NPR's Scott Horsley.
Sales of existing homes rose more than 5% in December compared to the previous month. Mortgage rates have fallen from nearly 7% a year ago to just over 6% today. A new report from the Commerce Department says retail sales picked up in November. Consumer spending at restaurants, stores, and gas stations rose by 0.6% during the month. Thanks to President Trump's tariffs, the U.S. is buying less from China, but China's finding plenty of other buyers around the world. Exports from the world's second largest economy rose 5.5% last year, and China's trade surplus grew to a record $1.2 trillion.
It's NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Auto Insurance protects the vehicles that work to keep small businesses moving forward, including protection while running errands and other tasks at progressivecommercial.com.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. People gathered outside the Carolina Park Hilton in St. Petersburg to protest against Customs and Border Protection yesterday. CBP is holding a 2-day recruiting event at that hotel. The federal agency is different from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. However, CBP is starting to play a bigger part in immigration arrests. Belinda Stokes says she drove from her home in Manatee County to join the rally.
I want to come out here and stand up for what we believe. We're all humans. They're not treating even Americans like humans anymore.
Around 60 protesters chanted, blew whistles, and blared horns outside the hotel. Protesters say they plan to do the same thing today. More than 20 Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies and St. Petersburg police officers were monitoring that event. On the first day of the legislative session yesterday, rifts already appearing. It started during Governor Ron DeSantis' State of the State address, his last as governor. He shook Senate President Ben Albriton's hand, but not the House Speaker's. Speaker Daniel Perez later called the move petulant.
A person who stopped me after I got off the rostrum has been in this chamber for many decades and said they had never seen that, and it was a sad day for the state.
Perez also expressed his frustration with the Senate, saying they've lost opportunities not being on the same page. St. Petersburg is currently receiving bids from companies that would like to redevelop the historic gas plant district and the Tropicana field site. Now St. Pete Catalyst reports multiple national companies are partnering with 2 developers who have expressed interest in transforming the 86-acre site as a way to beef up the offers. Allison Development's proposal could include a medical facility after Evora Health said it would like to be part of their bid. Even the Pinellas County Housing Authority is getting involved. It signed a letter of intent to collaborate with ARC, Ellis, and Horse on a plan to make affordable housing a big part of the proposal. 50% chance of rain this evening with a high today of 68. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
Have you ever been so wrapped up in an interview on WUSF that you were late for a meeting because you couldn't stop listening? Stay connected to the ideas that grip you. Download the WUSF app, your spot for local, wherever you are.
Witness the power of scale in June Kaneko, Silence Before Sound. Explore monumental Dongo sculptures and vibrant works shaped by rhythm, color, and space. Now at the Tampa Museum of Art. Tickets at tampamuseum.org.
This is Florida Matters Live and Local, sponsored by Badawi Law. I'm Matthew Petty. Sarasota's shopping and dining district, St. Armands Circle, has been a target of flooding over the last 3 major hurricanes to hit Florida. It's an important part of the economy in Sarasota, and city commissioners are worried about the impact of persistent flooding.
You can't keep merchants in business if they're constantly having to get rid of all their inventory and redo their stores after they've had flooding.
Well, that's Sarasota City Commissioner and former Mayor Liz Alpert. She talked to WSF's Jessica Mazzaros, and Jessica joins us now to talk more about flooding and sustainability in Sarasota. Jessica, thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And maybe you're a frequent shopper at St. Armands Circle or love to spend some time or money in Sarasota. If you've got some thoughts, you can join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, so St. Armands Circle was pretty badly hit by Hurricanes Debbie, Helene, and Milton in 2024. What kind of flooding impact was there, and what effect did it have on the economy for those local businesses?
Yeah, we know that most businesses there were closed for weeks or even months for some. And of course, that leads to loss of revenue, empty storefronts. You don't want to see that in a shopping district. And, there are smaller independent shops there that were really impacted. And they not only lost, those opportunities to sell to their residents, their everyday shoppers, but tourists. It's a really big area for tourists. And then there's, of course, the millions of dollars in damages.
Yeah, I feel like on previous episodes of Florida Matters Live and Local, we've heard from people who've said they go to Sarasota just to shop, especially St. Armands Circle. So
right.
Kind of a big deal for them. What about just the kind of structural things? I mean, is this an infrastructure issue, or is it just like a risk of living in a coastal city?
Well, Matt, I would say both. Living along any body of water is a risk. That's why we have something that's, flood insurance. That's why it exists. But now that this is becoming the new norm of these back-to-back storms, 2024 was a really intense time for Floridians. Now we're having to adapt to our outdated infrastructure. So not only is it a risk, but, these rising sea levels and storm surge, our infrastructure is not equipped to deal with that back to back. And that's why we heard Liz Alpert earlier saying what she said.
Yeah, and you've done lots of reporting on, how different cities are kind of adapting to that. Or trying to upgrade their infrastructure, right? The floodwater systems and the like.
Yeah, and there's a lot of debate, especially like areas like Treasure Island and Barrier Islands of what does that look like? What does building for 2050 and 2100 look like? And some people are saying this is not our problem for today. This is going to be too an expensive endeavor for the future when we're living here now. So it really is a debate of what's the best way to do this.
Yeah, so. I want to just play a little more sound from Liz Alpert. Here's what she had to say about the role of local government.
Who better knows their community and what's needed in the community to protect it than local government?
And this is important, I think, because in your conversation with Liz Alpert, she was sort of talking a little bit about the different roles of like local, federal, and state government, and who has the responsibility to deal with problems when they arise. Are there some preemption rules in place that would make it difficult for, say, the city of Sarasota or even the county to step up and try and fix some of these issues or mitigate them?
I would say currently regarding resiliency and sustainability, I don't know any off the top of my head, but I do know that both federal and state government, they do make pockets of recovery money available. And for resiliency, like we have the Resilient Florida Fund, and then they disperse that to local governments to then give out as they see fit. What Liz Alpert and I were discussing is, right now, as the legislature is going on, it just opened yesterday in Tallahassee, there are at least 6 preemption proposals, which means that the state government is trying to limit or regulate how local government does its job, and regarding conservation lands. And one of them even, they're trying to regulate how local governments regulate for wetlands, water quality, pollution control, and discharge prevention. And because Liz Alpert is a member of the League of Florida Cities, or Florida League of Cities, she was saying that herself and other local government officials are really concerned about this upward trend in the legislature trying to preempt what local governments are able to do for their own communities, especially, being a community along the sea.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we're talking with WUSF's Jessica Mazzaros about flooding in Sarasota, what the city of Sarasota is doing, and if you want to weigh in on resilience in Sarasota or other waterside cities, you can give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So the city was awarded some money, right, by the county. This is back in December. It was awarded $13.5 million to make St. Armands Circle more resilient to flooding. How are they going to spend the money?
Well, so far, what we know, they do plan to upgrade the stormwater pumps there. I think upgrading and getting some new equipment as well, and the pipes, to make sure that the pipes, the water doesn't back up into the system, and also some new generators as well, backup generators.
Right. Is it a long-term plan? You talked about sort of how do you plan for 2050 or 2100, but are they looking that far out, or is this just really what can we do in the meantime to make sure that, next time there's a big storm, people are going to be okay?
I think I'd have to double check with Liz Alpert on that, but I think based on the fact that the city has done its own vulnerability testing, that they are armed with this information of before a major project like this about what it's supposed to look like and what's going to happen. They're very aware of what's happening in 2050 and 2100, and so I believe that this kind of funding is going toward a longer term project, because I think it's going to be disrupting, with the construction and things like that. So I imagine that they're thinking long term with this as they start, kind of disrupt the shopping and things like that to construct this.
Yeah, I imagine though, it's got to be hard, as you say, to plan, because when we hear about these big flooding events, you often hear things like, oh, this is a 1 in 100 year flood or a 1 in 1,000 year flood, right? So every time one of those things happens, they've got to kind of recalibrate and think, okay, what's going to come next? Like, how bad could this get?
Yeah, I found that a lot in my reporting last year after 2024. I talked with people who are in charge of stormwater from Sarasota to St. Pete to Tampa and at the county levels as well, even Pasco and Polk counties. And everybody's thinking about this. And it's funny because I did a compilation of audio saying this is a 1 in 500 year flood. This is a 1 in 100 year flood. And so many people describing it in this way, but it's back to back to back. And so, yeah, I think that at this point, it's just a matter of when is it going to flood, and really taking a look at the risk assessments that even insurance companies are looking at. Insurance companies are looking at what is your risk, and that's how much you're going to be paying for your policy, and that's whether or not we decide to back out of the state of Florida because it becomes too risky. So that is something that's being talked about and looked at, and it seems to be happening more often now.
Yeah. Talking about flooding and resilience in Sarasota, but other waterside cities too. If you've got some thoughts on it, maybe you live near a body of water and have some concerns about resilience and flooding, give us a call, 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Aside from flooding, are there some other resilience goals that Sarasota has in store?
Yeah, so what we do know, they funded the county, Sarasota County rather, funded, this is one of 9 projects that they're using these federal recovery dollars for, and for a wide variety of things like a large-scale floodplain, there's some transportation initiatives, and a wide variety of other infrastructure improvements. So there is going to be a lot of change across Sarasota County to come.
Mm-hmm. And just remind us, the trying to fix what's happening in St. Armands Circle. What exactly are they doing?
Right. So we mentioned about the backup generators and the stormwater pumps. I think it's really also and the piping. So it's like, how do we maneuver water around? Right. It's a lot of Florida is like, how do we move water? Yeah. Because that's basically what our issue has been is water. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even to just move into this state many years ago is how do we move water so we can build here? Now it's like, okay, water's found us again. How do we move the water around?
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, that can be a challenge as you sort of like as development continues, there's fewer and fewer places, right, that you can move the water to, I imagine.
Right.
Okay, so, I mean, are there some other kind of big picture things that they need to be thinking about? Is it sort of a conservation problem, or is it just specific to this flooding?
Well, again, in my conversation with Liz Alper, I met her at a sustainable communities workshop in Sarasota where she started talking about all the projects, which is how I, pulled her aside and was like, I think we should interview about what's been going on over the last decade. But I know Sarasota has been prioritizing a lot in terms of sustainability. They do have a goal of reaching 100% clean energy by 2050. And for city facilities, they're at 80% right now. So reducing greenhouse gas emissions through things like what they're calling like micro mobility, which means like making scooters and e-bikes available and a trolley and things like that.
Yeah. Let's get a call in here real quick if we could. Julie, you're on the air. What are you thinking?
Hi, my name is Julie Szabo, and I have a property on Tanglewood Drive along the Philippi Creek, which was flooded in during Debbie 2024. And our experience was that specifically that one of the reasons that our property flooded so badly wasn't just that Sarasota doesn't have a proper resiliency plan, but there was a lack of maintenance of what current stormwater things. Like Philippi Creek, 25 years ago, my family tried to approach the county and the city to have the Philippi Creek dredged, and it was never dredged. Yeah. And there's two group of citizens who've been very active this year to try to campaign to have the Philippi Creek dredged. And it is finally happening, but it should have happened beforehand.
Yeah. Hey, we got to go to a break, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for your call. We got to go to a break, but we will continue the discussion after the break on Florida Matters Live and Local.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also Seitenbacher, with a new web shop, healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com, Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher. Sarasota Ballet presents Notes Unspoken, accompanied by the Sarasota Orchestra, featuring Gemma Bond's world premiere and more, January 30th through February 2nd at the FSU Center. Tickets at sarasotaballet.org.
The mornings are cooler, the license plates are from everywhere. It must be winter in Florida. Well, if you're ready to part with a car, motorcycle, or even boat, donating it to us supports trusted local news and may count as a tax deduction. Call 866-WUSF-CAR or visit WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. We're broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio in Tampa, talking with Jessica Mazzaros with WUSF. She's our Environment and Sustainability and Climate Change reporter, talking about what Sarasota is doing to mitigate or plan, I guess, for flooding, future flood events in St. Armands Circle, but also just the bigger picture, the bigger story about resiliency and flooding in coastal cities. You can weigh in as well. If you've got a question about it, give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Jessica, we were talking with a listener before, and I'm afraid we had to kind of cut that call a little bit short because we had to go to the break, but the sense I got was that there are some things that could have been done that weren't, such as dredging in the Philippi Creek she was talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very specific to that sort of one area, but there's a whole range of things that that cities and counties are having to think about with these kind of more and more intense storms.
Yeah, and Julie was talking about that dredging, and I did read that the dredging project is going to be moving forward with some of these dollars that we're talking about, this pocket of money. And again, after the 2024 storms, I did speak with stormwater experts all across this greater region. And basically the gist that I got was, okay, our stormwater systems are outdated, and they're not able to not only withstand storm surge, which is the salt water pushing up onto the land, but there's also the record amount of rainfall that we saw during Milton. And as we know, that as climate is changing, that is leading to storms becoming rainier, more precipitation, and so that is also what allowed a lot of these rivers to come up in 2024, and so they're having to think about that, and pretty much all of them are outdated, all of our stormwater systems, and it's very costly to change that, but they're all having to change that.
Yeah, and just thinking about the money you mentioned, I mean, $13.5 million. It's a lot of money to a regular person, right? Sounds like a lot of money to me, but that is going to just vanish in an instant when you're thinking about spending it on these big engineering projects.
Yeah, and just countywide, those 9 projects are being funded with $57 million all across the county. So, they're having that to work with.
Yeah. Got another call coming in. Katrina is on the line. Katrina, what are you thinking?
Hi. So one of the things that I saw in Tampa that they did, I think it was around one of the stadiums, was they put the walls that hold the water out. And I'm really curious as to why something like that can't be done. That seems very cost effective, much more than trying to build brand new structures.
Yeah. Hey, Katrina, thank you so much for that call. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jessica, there's a product called like an Aquafence or something, which I believe they've deployed it at Tampa Hospital or
Tampa General Hospital. Yeah. There's something exactly. Basically, it looks like an L shape, and it pushes up against. It's a piece of wall like 9 feet tall that pushes up against the hospital, and then it has a platform at the bottom. And as basically the idea is, as the storm surge fills that up, it puts more weight on it, and so it really holds back. And they got to watch live camera footage during Hurricane Helene storm surge, and it seemed to work really well. So I think it just depends. I mean, there's a lot of projects, and I would say initiatives, especially after the storm season we had in 2024, to see what is working. And I think all municipalities are kind of looking at various programs and solutions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's 2 schools of thought, right? Well, there's a couple of ways of looking at some of these challenges. You can either build your way out of it, like temporarily with an aquafence or something similar to that. You can build kind of big barriers like they do in some cities, or you can kind of try and use some natural means to help sort of mitigate floods, like
living shorelines.
Indeed, yeah. We've talked with you on Florida Matters Live and Local about the mangroves and other things like that.
Correct. And that's also what Liz Alpert from Sarasota was saying, is that living shorelines and building upwards. Those are the two. Well, that's how she sees Sarasota in 2050 and 2100. Those are the 2 main things that she thinks is like our big solutions for this.
And building upward would mean sort of having maybe first floor stuff that isn't like a garage or something, where you can kind of have your living space above the sea level, so to speak.
Yeah, and you're starting to see that a lot. Like I did some reporting out of Fort Myers Beach, and that's, I mean, a lot of this has to do with federal standards. So once your home kind of gets flooded out, if you're in a flood zone, then you have these standards that you have to meet. And if you're going to rebuild, you have to rebuild, I think a foot above the flood zone and the floodplain. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. Even driving down in Pinellas, after the storms, I'm seeing like these old Florida homes from the 50s that are now like these tiny little homes all the way up there that have been put on a big cement blocks.
Yeah.
And so it's I think that a lot of our shorelines are going to look like that.
You got to really love your old house to want to do that work
I know,
to
right?
elevate it. Aside from the Sarasota City Commission, so folks like Liz Elpert and others who are really kind of working on the ground level to try and mitigate against some of these problems or figure out what to do next time there's a big flood event. Are there some lawmakers working on legislation to help kind of prevent flood damage?
I think last legislative session was big on this. We know that the governor actually signed a bill into law. And part of what that bill does is, or rather now it's a law, it makes local governments have to conduct and report annual inspections of vulnerable stormwater systems. And as we saw, here not too far from USF's Tampa campus, all that water backing up on Fowler. And so that's pretty much what this is trying to address. And so that's new this year. So that and others were pretty much brought up last year.
Aside from living shorelines, I mean, are there other things you can do? Like are wetlands important on inland areas to try and mitigate against flooding in cities that aren't right up against the waterways?
Yeah, so like what we're seeing in Progress Village, they are having they're building a stormwater pond there, and so that's meant to kind of trap the water. And of course, that's not anywhere near a body of water, but Progress Village has had historical flooding there for years, and now that we've talked about lack of space for building, but now that there's a lot of building and construction that's been going on, and the expansion around Progress Village, they're finding that a lot of water is being dumped to their level as these other places are built higher. All the water is falling toward the Progress Village, which is a historically Black neighborhood.
Indeed. In comparison with other cities like Tampa or St. Pete, I mean, how does Sarasota's plan for resilience look?
Honestly, I would say that along the greater Tampa region, greater Sarasota region, based on the reporting that I did last year, talking with all these stormwater experts at the county levels, at the city levels, I think everyone is pretty much doing a great job of thinking about this. I mean, of course, it took a really horrible hurricane year in 2024 to see that, like what happens with saltwater storm surge, what happens with all of the freshwater flooding that comes from rainfall, and of course then the wind damage of Milton. But I think it took that back-to-back catastrophe to really bump everybody into gear. So I think they're all doing really well in terms of they have sustainability officers and plans in place, and they're really thinking about this, which is really important.
Jessica Mazzaro is covering the environment and climate change with WUSF. You can find her reporting on Sarasota's flood resilience plans on WUSF.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And coming up next, another view on the state of the state. And if you want to join the conversation and talk about what laws you want to see out of Tallahassee this year, call us 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Florida Matters Live and Local continues in just a moment. Stay with us.
On the next Fresh Air, Marco Rubio once called Donald Trump a con artist. Now as Secretary of State, he's defending policies he once opposed and overseeing deep cuts to the very foreign aid programs he once supported. New Yorker staff writer Dexter Filkins will join us to talk about his new article on Rubio's political transformation. Join us.
Fresh Air can now be heard weeknights, Monday through Thursday at 7 o'clock.
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you. And Badawi Law, offering legal services in personal injury, immigration, and auto accidents, with offices in Tampa, Florida. Office information and practice details at BadawiLaw.com or learn more on Instagram at Badawi Law.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. We're broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis Neil Frankel studio in Tampa. Well, yesterday, Governor Ron DeSantis delivered his annual State of the State address. While he mostly touted Florida as the best state in the country, saying it was a shining example of individual freedom and other states should follow Florida, he did briefly speak about issues like environmental protections for the Everglades, property taxes, and immigration. On immigration, the governor claimed that the state's crackdown is, quote, making the state safer.
Florida is the only state in the country that requires state and local cooperation with federal interior enforcement efforts. In the past 9 months alone, Florida is responsible for the apprehension of nearly 20,000 illegal aliens that have been turned over to the Department of Homeland Security to be returned to their home countries. Our people are safer because of these efforts.
Joining us to talk more about this and give us what we're calling the People's State of the State is Pastor Andy Oliver, pastor of Allendale United Methodist Church in St. Petersburg. Andy, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Also joined by Kara Gross, Legislative Director and Senior Policy Counsel of the ACLU of Florida. Kara, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
And we want to hear from you too. What issues are top of mind for you right now? The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us a message at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Kara, I want to start with you. The ACLU of Florida has identified 6 topics to watch this session. I wonder if you could just briefly tell us what those are and why they're important.
Yeah, thank you so much. And first, I'll say that the mission of the ACLU of Florida is to protect, defend, strengthen, and promote the constitutional rights and civil liberties of all people of Florida. And we envision a Florida that is fair and just for all people, where all people are free and equal under the law and live with dignity. So the things that we are focusing on are the things that are aligned with those missions. So we are particularly worried about voter suppression and disenfranchisement in Florida. Anything that restricts our rights and our freedoms to democracy are things that we're going to be opposing. We also focus on issues of immigrants' rights and criminal legal reform and reproductive freedom and LGBTQ rights. So we are a multi-issue organization that is fighting for the freedom for all Floridians and trying to prevent the attacks that we are seeing right now from having impacts on the ground.
Andy, what about you? What legislation are you going to be paying particular attention to?
You know, listening to the speech yesterday, I just felt like the governor was listing off every single culture war that he has heightened and used to divide the people of Florida. When people of Florida can't survive, can't afford groceries, can't afford rent, can't afford health care. And that's what I care about. I don't want to see any more harm done to the people on the margins, to people who are being oppressed. It's time for us to focus as a state on affordability, we just have to stop. We have to stop the harm.
On affordability, he did actually mention that, particularly in context of the property tax and property homeowners insurance. So. He did sort of say, look, we are trying to do some things to make things more affordable for homeowners, for example.
Yeah, when we talk about housing, where I am in St. Pete, I'm part of a city that's still arresting people for sleeping because they have no place to call home. And that is just a capitulation to the policies that DeSantis has put in motion. It's time that we really, as people of conscience, put our bodies on the line between the powerful and those who are vulnerable, specifically those who are unhoused, and declare that they are people, they're humans, and even in blue cities, we're treating them with no dignity.
We could join this conversation talking about priorities for the legislative session. What do you want to see done this legislative session? What would improve things for Floridians, do you think? Give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Pastor Andy, I want to ask about putting your body on the line in a moment, but let me just pivot back to Kara for a moment, if I could. You know, one of the rights that you mentioned, one of the things that you're going to be focusing on is immigration. And we just heard from Governor DeSantis saying that the state has repealed benefits for immigrants and banned sanctuary cities. I mean, what's your read on the impact on Floridians and the state of Florida?
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, the governor's legislation over the past few sessions has been absolutely devastating for Floridians. And this includes those who are seeking to obtain permanent status and U.S. citizens alike. Immigrants work and pay taxes. Many have lived in our communities for decades. Many are married to U.S. citizens and raise their U.S. citizen children here in Florida. And what the governor has done is impose a cruel and inhumane system that targets Floridians and harms our communities and terrorizes families. And this includes school children, our neighbors, workers, loved ones. And what we don't see from the governor is any humanity or empathy for the policies that he is putting in place. Yesterday, he touted how proud he is of all of the harm that he has done to our communities, of all of the harm that he has done in separating families, in tearing parents away from their children, in deporting people who have been here for years and who have been hardworking citizens and who have contributed to our economy and our lives. We are all humans. We are all Floridians. We deserve to be treated humanely, and that is not what the governor's policies are doing.
On the flip side of that, though, I mean, I think the governor and his supporters would say, "Look, we're just trying to follow the law." And I get the sense that there are plenty of Floridians who say, people who are here without documentation shouldn't be here. There should be some kind of some more of a crackdown on folks who are here without the required documentation.
Well, we should have common sense laws in place that respect the humanity and dignity of individuals and create pathways so that individuals who are hardworking and who are here are able to live their lives. But instead, what the governor is doing is he is passing policies that are terrorizing our communities and that are separating families. And this doesn't make Florida safer. This makes Florida less safe. When people are scared to go out into the community because they don't know whether or not they're going to be able to come home to their family at the end of the day, that is terrifying. And that's what we've created here under this governor.
Yeah, Pastor Andy, you have a thought.
Yeah, we can look back through history and look at things like segregation, redlining, having sundown towns. We don't ask if those things were lawful. We ask if they were right. And in this moment, we have to realize that history is going to look back on us and ask if we did the right thing. Doing the right thing doesn't always mean to do the lawful thing.
We've got a caller on the line. Heather, you're on the air. When you think about what you want to see come out of the session, what are you thinking?
Oh, gosh, so much. But what I called to ask was with regards to repealing the property taxes, that all sounds fantastic, except how many people know exactly what that money is earmarked for? And I've heard no discussion about making up those funds and how much it'll affect our schools and our local governments. Like, what is the discussion on that? Where is that discussion, and how is that money going to be made up anywhere else?
And Heather, do you mind, where are you calling from?
Tampa.
Tampa, okay. Hey, thanks for your call, Heather. Appreciate it. Pastor Andy, I'm going to throw this one to you. It's maybe a little bit outside the ambit of what we've been talking about before this, but I mean, that is probably something that you might be thinking about when you're thinking about the well-being of your flock, right?
Yeah, property taxes pay for our schools, and this is a part of the state's continued effort to defund our public schools. I have two children who are in high school right now. I'm a product of public schools, and I think it's important that we fund our schools and everything else that property taxes go toward. And I think it's pretty reckless the way that we are talking fiscally right now in our state.
Got an email too from Jay, who writes, great show on flooding. The discussion we we're just having before the break. How will removing property taxes impact this issue? Stormwater assessments, improvements, resiliency. Again, Pastor, this is maybe more of the kind of physical than the spiritual realm, but those are also things that have material impact on folks that you tend to in your congregation.
Yeah, everything is spiritual. The way that we structure ourselves and the way that we live together, politics. Jesus was political. Any time that Jesus showed compassion, radical compassion, it oftentimes made people angry. But it was ways that Jesus pointed us to how to live and how to create beloved community and to do life together in a way that uplifted those at the farthest reaches.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about the state of the state, the legislative session that got underway yesterday. I want to hear from you. What do you think, or what issues are top of mind for you? What do you want lawmakers to be focused on over the next 60 days, and what laws would make an impact on your life? 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. I'm wondering, Kara, aside from immigration, I mean, you mentioned some of the sort of list of things that ACLU of Florida is looking at this session, but was there anything else in the speech that really kind of touched on the areas, particularly that you're closely watching over the next 2 months?
Yeah, so many things. I mean, I guess one main thing I want to talk about is that, the governor talks about, a quote unquote free state of Florida, but that is not what we are seeing in Florida under the last 7 years that he's been governor. And we have consistently seen our freedoms being eroded and our constitutional and civil liberties being eroded. There's several bills that he has passed over the past couple sessions that have made it harder for citizens to be able to exercise their right to vote, that have made it harder for individuals to access health care, that have made it harder for individuals to make decisions about their own body, that have made it harder for individuals to be able to speak and learn and teach. He has completely dismantled public education as we knew it. And he touts these things as being a free state of Florida, but we're not more free. We're more controlled by a governor and a government that can suppress and censor and punish views that he disagrees with. And that's what we continue to see over the past several sessions. And we'll continue to fight back against those types of bills.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are plenty of folks who say the governor's doing a good job. I mean, a lot of folks moved to Florida, from 2020 onwards, and there are plenty of people who support what the governor has done over the last 7 years. So I guess it sort of depends a little bit on where you stand on some of these issues. But I wanted to just come back to you for a moment, Pastor Andy, if I could. I mean, you mentioned sort of putting your body on the line. Last summer, you were arrested when you protested the state painting over intersections that celebrated LGBTQ rights and other rights groups. Do you expect to see that kind of that talked about a lot this session? Is that going to be a focus, do you think?
Yeah, I was in front of the Woodson Museum, our African American History Museum in St. Petersburg, at the invitation there of the Woodson, and I knelt with another clergy person as the DOT tried to erase the mural, and stayed, kept my body there. Not with the expectation that the DOT was going to stop painting over it, but because my faith compelled me that there was no other place that I could be in that moment. A New England bishop just told his clergy to get their affairs in order. And so the question is no longer what are we willing to say, but whether we will stand physically between those who are powerful and those who are vulnerable. And that's the moment we're in, and the decision that not only clergy, but all of us will have to wrestle with. As far as how are we going to live while loving our neighbors.
I want to just read one more email here. This is from Mike in Parish, who writes, Floridians tired of hearing about DEI and all those other culture war topics pushed by the right-wing news cycle. Culture war topics are a distraction from the real issues impacting Floridians every day. Mike, thank you so much for that email. We welcome anyone's emails, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. You can also call and weigh in. 813-755-6562. But we're going to leave this discussion here for now. Pastor Andy Oliver, Ellendale United Methodist Church in St. Pete, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Kara Gross, Legislative Director and Senior Policy Counsel of ACLU of Florida. Kara, thank you as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
And coming up next, we speak to an artist who is trying to survive and thrive in their craft despite the loss of local and state financial support. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
I'm Indira Lakshmanan. Texas A&M has blocked a professor from teaching Plato in his philosophy classes. It's the latest restriction on academic freedom following new government policies on race and gender. Were the ancient Greeks too woke? The professor joins us on the show next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
NPR Music wants to hear your music. Submit your very own original song to the Tiny Desk contest between January 13th and February 9th. If you win, you'll play your very own Tiny Desk concert. Learn more at npr.org/Tiny Desk Contest. And make sure you tune in to Tiny Desk Radio on Friday nights at 9 and Saturday nights at 8 on WUSF 89.7, your spot for local.
Sarasota Concert Association presents Royal Philharmonic with the program featuring Beethoven's Piano Concerto No. 1 and the Sibelius Symphony No. 2. January 19th at the Van Wezel. Tickets at scasarasota.org.
Arts, music, culture, all in one place. Explore it all at artsaccessflorida.org. That's artsaccessflorida.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Being an artist has always meant making something beautiful or meaningful with the resources you have available. And for some artists in Pinellas County, it means doing that work with even less resources. Creative Pinellas, Pinellas County's nonprofit arts organization, closed its gallery doors last week at the Pinewood Cultural Park in Largo. That's because the Pinellas County Commission eliminated roughly $1 million for the group last September. Despite vocal public support, the Commission redirected half of that money to individual arts tourism grants. Commissioners said Creative Pinellas wasn't a good return on investment dollars for tourism. Here's Commissioner Chris Latvella.
And I mean, no disrespect to the people sitting behind me or people in the other room, but this really is not life, like it's not life or death. Arts will still be here. Pinellas County will still thrive. The sun will still shine.
Commissioner Chris Latvella there in Pinellas County. Is this a sign, though, that government support for the arts is endangered? And if you're a Florida-based artist, what has been your experience getting funding or support? Have grants become a bit harder to come by lately? How do you continue to make it work? Give us a call. Let us know. 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also reach out by email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, joining us now is John Gascott. He's a St. Pete-based visual artist, co-owner of studios at 5663 and founder of the Diversity Arts, Inc. That's a group that provides materials and space for underserved adults and youth. John, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've been a recipient of grants from Creative Pinellas, the National Endowment of the Arts, and others. How important are these grants to the work you do?
These grants are very important for artists who are out there trying to make a difference in community, especially. You know, a lot of these grants go to not just work that happens within a studio, but work that is community-based. So it goes beyond funding an artist. It goes towards investing in community and reaches out much further than just the artist.
Mm-hmm. Is the process of making the art as important as the finished product?
Oh, absolutely. The process of making the art is crucial to the finished product. And, you know, it's emotional, it's physical, it's a journey.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've urged community decision makers to save murals and support Creative Pinellas. What goes through your mind as an artist when you hear someone like Commissioner Latvella saying it's not life or death, art will still be here?
It's so dismissive. What they did was pure theater, in my opinion. I believe they had the largest number of supporters in that room for any other meeting. And they just let those people go there and pour their hearts out. And they knew all along that they were going to defund the organization. There's no doubt in my mind. So I find it disrespectful and dismissive of one of our main, you know, we call ourselves the Arts Coast.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of our main sources of attracting tourism and building community. So I find it just dismissive and disrespectful.
What about that gallery? Like, for folks who hadn't got the chance to visit it, what was it like? What sort of experience did it provide?
That gallery was so much more than a gallery. It was a museum level gallery. I mean, the shows that Creative Pinellas put on were top notch, and I would say would stand up to any museum show that I've seen personally. And it's going to be a real loss for the community. It's probably going to just sit there vacant now for however many more years.
Are there some alternative spaces that artists can kind of gravitate towards in the community?
So, for example, here at Studios at 5663, I curate monthly or bi-monthly shows, and we invite outside artists. So we do give opportunities for artists to still exhibit, and there's a number of galleries that do that throughout the St. Pete and Tampa Bay area, but they're not to the scale of what Creative Pinellas had. You know, it's a lot different.
We are talking with John Gascott. He's a visual artist based in St. Pete, talking about loss of funding for arts organizations in Pinellas County specifically. But I want to hear from you too. If you're a patron of local arts, wherever you are in the Tampa Bay region, how do you think Florida's local and state governments could show up more for artists who call Florida home? Do you have some other grassroots ideas in the lack of some of this funding going away? Give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Okay, so this week, Creative Pinellas posted on its Facebook page that the organization still exists with a smaller footprint and they are working on their next chapter. So, I mean, how does Creative Pinellas kind of losing the physical presence, though, impact the community? Like, what do you think the future could be for this organization?
You know, I'm not sure. I mean, because they're now tying them to visit St. Pete Clearwater, which is a wonderful organization, but certainly more tourism based. So you're taking that funding away and gearing it in a different direction. And now I feel like they're under the thumb of something different. And they're going to have to sort of go back to the board and reimagine what they're going to do. People like ourselves who are lucky enough to have spaces are open to collaborating with them. But again, you know, what they can achieve in a space like ours or many of the others it's not to the scale of what they were able to in that space in Largo. And there's less grants, obviously.
Right. So, and I imagine the grants that are out there, there's going to be pretty fierce competition for those pots of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally know people who were set to receive grants in the last cycle, and they just went away. You know, they applied, they were awarded, but the funds were no longer there. So,
if you're an artist and you've got some thoughts on grants and how they impact your work and how grants going away are going to impact your work going forward, we would love to hear your input as well. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, John, you've created a grassroots effort, right? You've started the United Mural Project through your organization,
Correct.
Diversity Arts Inc. Tell us a little more about that and what are you doing kind of in light of the sort of funding going away?
So the United Mural Project started not only because of funding going away, but because of the erasure of inclusive and diverse murals like we saw in St. Pete and all through the state and beyond. I had the great honor of being one of the artists to create the Black Lives Matter, Black History Matter murals at the Woodson. And, you know, I found myself, I was part of a group that was sort of fighting that battle in St. Pete and spoke at city council, where again, I feel like there was a lot of theater happening because our mayor just kind of buckled and went along with the erasures, and that was very disappointing when there were other cities and mayors who were still fighting. And it's not that I expected that the battle would be won, but I expected it to be fought so that we could see how he stood for the people and for diverse communities. So having this building, we had a number of fading murals, and I said, we're sitting on something here. So let's just take this road ourselves. And I assembled a group of amazing artists that come from as wide a range of backgrounds as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And we're creating the United mural, which is literally going to say United, and each artist will take a letter, and it's sort of a nod to the Black Lives Matter, Black History Matters murals, mm-hmm. which is what we did there. Yeah. And we're planning on creating a lasting landmark for the community where everybody can feel seen and heard and be a part of it. We're literally inviting the community to have a hand in it, actually.
Sounds wonderful. Got a call coming in from Jessica. Jessica, you're on the air. What are you thinking?
Hi. Thanks so much for having me on. Sure. So I actually used to work for Creative Pinellas several years ago. I worked there with Chris Hubbard, mm-hmm. Lee Davis, Sam Sampson, and Danny Olda, and it was truly a transformative moment. I worked on the public art project that eventually became Spacecraft, but more pertinent to the conversation at hand, I helped bring the gallery at Creative Pinellas into its current state. It used to actually still have a lot of
right.
Elements from when it used to be a fishing museum, and I sort of took over as the ad hoc facilities manager for that space. Say, thank you so much for talking about Creative Pinellas, for the praise that was heaped on that space, because I have such fond memories of it.
Yeah.
I feel very deeply about the importance of arts in the community. Thank you for bringing it to everyone's attention and for wanting to continue fighting this fight for us.
Jessica, thanks so much for that call. I appreciate you weighing in from your expert perspective there. We are actually out of time. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave this conversation here, but John Gascott, I want to thank you so much for your insights as well. Really appreciate you joining Florida Matters Live and Local and talking about the importance of the arts in Pinellas County. Well, coming up tomorrow on Florida Matters Live and Local, where should the new home of the Tampa Bay Rays be situated? There's a new proposal to put it on Dale Mabry, where Hillsborough Community College currently is. Find out if that could happen and what that could mean for the college tomorrow on Florida Matters Live and Local. And give us a call, weigh in 813-755-6562, and tune in tomorrow at noon. That's our show for today. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producers are Amelie Horace and Quincy Walters. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Garvin. And Jackson composed our theme music. Malika Hollis handled the video today. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you this time tomorrow.
There are thousands of oil tankers